Joining us now is our reporter Sarah Yeku, who was at the border a few days ago. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Good to have you back.
Good morning, Sarah.
Now, talk to us what you saw on the ground when you went across the border.
Our experience was interesting and also dry, if I would say.
Really?
So we're excited to actually go on the journey to see how traders, residents around the neighborhood communities in Nigeria and also in Benin Republic, how they are faring on that the partial closure which the government directive which the government has given. But when we got to these communities, back here in Nigeria, a lot of them were complaining and groaning about the prices of goods, how they do not have businesses anymore. For instance, Badagry, which is, of course, a neighboring community to the border. A lot of them complain that they do not have basic amenities, they do not have large-scale factories in their community. So the only thing they can depend on is
items from across.
Trade activities from Benin Republic to Nigeria. And now the government has stopped that activity. And so it, of course, leaves open any kind of business smuggling now is being encouraged. And like we spoke to one of the traditional rulers, he said that they did not just close the border, they opened more borders. They opened more illegal borders. So, the border that we have in at Seme is the legal border where you can bring in goods, legitimate goods, clear your goods and all that. But there are some other corners, for instance, Idiroko and some other places, even along that border, where smugglers come in at about 3 a.m. in the morning, bringing goods. So the man was complaining about the fact that the naval officers need to step up activities on the waterways to ensure that they curb smuggling.
Okay, we see that as that yesterday or 2 days ago, Ghana has stopped Ghana Trade Union proposing the stoppage of Nigerian goods into Ghana owing to the closure of our borders. How is this border closure affecting our relationship with other African countries who depend on us as well?
Well, if you look at the place where Nigeria is on the top economies in Africa, you see that Nigeria still ranks #1. Out of all the countries, especially in West Africa, Nigeria still ranks #1. Look at all the industries that we have, the Nollywood, the agriculture industry. Interestingly, we still are doing a lot, we're making a lot of progress. Although it might be little, but we're making progress. Considering the relationship we have with other African countries, I believe that if Nigeria can, guard our borders, it's not just economic results that we're looking at now. We spoke to some officials of camera and they told us that daily they see child trafficking at the borders, they see illegal smuggling, of course, they see persons who might have committed crime in Benin Republic just come into the border without papers. And so now you have proper documentation. They have to check your papers before you pass. There's like a time limit, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
So immediately 6 p.m. you have to, they cannot allow you into the border. If you are within the premises of semi-cracky border, you can stay in the border, but you won't be allowed passage into either Benin Republic or Nigeria. No, they can allow you out of Benin because that does not cover Benin Republic. The rule does not cover Benin Republic, but it covers Nigeria border. So they won't allow you and go out
or
coming of that border of the semi-cracky border. So our relationship with the African countries, of course, will get better because we spoke to some persons out in Benin Republic, and they told us that over time, Benin Republic had, failed to recognize the place of Nigeria when it comes to, Benin Republic is about 10 million, the whole population, which is not even up to what you have in Lagos. Lagos is about 20 million. Yeah. So for a country like Benin Republic, their relationship with Nigeria has not been cordial when it comes to the ECOWAS trade policy that they have. So which is why the government has stepped up, enforcing that law that import duties being paid in Benin Republic, because the items that we're talking about, okrika, second-hand clothing, cars, rice, for instance, Benin Republic do not use those items. They all ship them down to Nigeria because we have the population. We're about 200 million. So they're not even the one using the goods, but they collect all the import duties on the goods, and then we're left to grapple with the peanuts that we get from these goods.
Sarah Ayeku. Now, one of the reasons why the federal government talked about the border closure was to check insecurity. When you spoke with the people living around the borders, did they say there was a drop in these activities of insecurity?
Also, while we spoke to some officials, because we didn't get an official to speak with us on camera, they told us that child trafficking had reduced. They also said that they were able to check persons coming in, so you have to have proper documentation. And of course, criminals may not, have all those documents that will allow them access into Nigeria. And so they said that for them, the level of insecurity has dropped, especially along the Seme border. So for them, it's a plus, and they do not have to control a large number of persons. Although while we were at the border, they had the issues. People can be very difficult. They had issues.
Manage, actually.
They had issues controlling people, telling them to go past the pedestrian walkway that was provided. But persons are just difficult to control. They still come to the border, where the place where you have cars where cars have to use. That's where they come to check their papers. So they have to send them all the way back. And you find out that a lot of these persons that are trying to pass the places where cars are supposed to use are persons who do not have papers. They do not have passports to actually any form of identification. So they just want to smuggle their way in, and then
perhaps when these officials are distracted,
yeah,
they
just walk past into very funny scenes at the border. And so a lot of the officials, the immigration officials, the customs officials, shouting, even to a point of beating some persons to go use the pedestrian walkway. And so I know that Nigerians, of course, are groaning. A lot of persons missed reactions as to why the government decided to close the borders. But if you look at it in the long run, it could also reduce the proliferation of small arms and ammunition.
But some will tell you that there are about over 1,900 routes into the country, and so how about those routes as well? Are we really?
We have to start from somewhere. Nigeria has to start from somewhere. So if there are other borders, of course, we know that smuggling will still go on at those other borders that are not being manned officially. But the ones that we can protect, which is the Seme border or some other borders that we can protect across the Nigerian territory, we should do, the Nigerian government should do their best to protect them. So we cannot just say, okay, let's just not protect, let's not man the borders that we have access to and just leave everything open. Persons that recounted their experiences at the borders before it was closed and said that the borders are always very porous. The borders, you have a lot of persons just coming into the border, just walking in, just like you're moving from one street to the other, but moving from one country to the other. So there has to be check.
Okay, looking at like we read in the report, now there's some people that are still there stranded, some goods are still there. I'm sure you related with some of them. What's their mindset? What are they saying about the border closure?
Of course, a lot of them are not happy. It's sad tales for them because their goods, they are not illegitimate goods. They came in through the borders to
be cleared. They have the proper
documentation to be cleared.
So what's the challenge?
But sadly, the borders are closed. So which is why some analysts are saying that Nigeria did not prepare economically to have like a safe landing for these persons that their goods are at the border presently. So you have truckloads of goods that are perishable, coconuts that shouldn't have stayed up to 2 months. It's over 2 months now, and then these goods are still at the border, no clearance in sight. The owners of the trucks are there, sleeping day in, day out.
Perhaps there's some good to this border closure, because like you mentioned coconut now, it got me thinking, in Badagry we have a whole lot of them. Why do we have to go across the border to get them in?
How many of these persons are being encouraged to actually grow coconut in Badagry? So you have them saying, okay, they can get these goods from Benin Republic or from some other places
at a cheaper price,
and they just ship it in. Well, of course, the border closure has gains, it has pains, but in the long run, analysts have said that the government has to do what it has to do.
Absolutely, Sarah. Nigeria Customs says it is raking about 5 billion naira daily. I wonder how it's making this amount. Did you interact with them to know details?
Of course, it's not just the Nigeria Customs Service that is involved in this operation. It's a joint operation, so you have persons, and it's been controlled by the National Security Advisor. So it's not just at the, the doorstep or the footstep of the Nigeria Customs Service. The Nigeria Immigration Service also very involved because it has to do with people also, and the National Security Advisor, everything stops at his desk. So the Nigeria Customs Service, since they do not have persons coming in through the borders again, you have to pay, everybody now has to go to the ports. So that's why they can say they are getting all that amount of money. But of course, we didn't get anybody to interact with us. They wanted us to go through the office of the National Security Advisor, which can take a long time, considering the Nigerian structure that we have. So we didn't get to interact with the customs official based on how much they're raking in. But from the reports we've seen, they say they're raking in a certain amount of money, they're clamping down on smugglers and all that stuff. So we can actually believe the figures that they're given.
Okay, so 55 billion naira daily, and that's what that's what we've been raking in so far. But what's the impact in terms of security on as regards the border closure?
Of course, persons without proper documentation do not have access, officially do not have access. We know that some things just play out in Nigeria that are not official, but officially, persons without proper documentations are not allowed to come into Nigeria as they will before now. And so there's been a level of, the level of security is now being maintained by the officials of the Customs Service in conjunction with officials of the Nigeria Immigration Service. So it's been contained to a large extent, but if you look at the economic implication on Nigeria and Benin Republic, at the other side, when we left the border because we're not allowed to take in our camera, we're not even allowed to take in our own car, we had to go through a cabman, and for the distance that we traveled from Seme border to Cotonou, we didn't see a filling station. Now that tells you that they do not have access to petrol the way they usually have access to it before. Yeah. So even in Badagry, if you look at the road, the road network, thankfully, the Lagos State government, construction work is ongoing on the Badagry Expressway, but that also, the bad road also has reduced the number of trailers or the number of trucks, fuel tankers that you have going through that route. So filling stations, they are selling petrol as much as 215 naira.
Wow. Even converted to naira?
No, 215 naira at the Nigerian side.
Oh, okay.
Wow. So you get, as against, of course it's not official. Yes. So at the other side, they buy like an hourglass kind of, because you don't have petrol stations, so they're in jerry cans, so you could buy for about 500, black market, yes, they buy 500 cefas, which is in our own currency about 367 naira equivalent per liter. So that's how much their own economy is being affected, but in Nigeria here, we cannot get the OK products, the second-hand clothing from an Aba market, for instance. Because the OK products, Nigerians are so used to having Tokumbo products that are second-hand being brought in. So it's going to be a mixed feelings for both Nigeria and Benin Republic.
Sarah Yeku, thank you for talking to us.
Yeah.
Well, let's tell you that the views and reactions of our research persons on topics discussed today are their views and have no connection with TVC News.
Oh, thank you very much for watching. You can keep up with us on social media using the hashtag TVC Breakfast. Of course, we're getting closer to the weekend. We'll be here tomorrow.
All right, until then, have a great day. Bye now.